Thanks for tuning in, everybody. This is part 2 of our discussion about the 2018 version of Halloween. As we said at the beginning of part 1, this episode is likely going to be spoiler heavy, so spoiler alert. We'll get that out of the way right away. So if you have not seen Halloween yet, I would strongly suggest hitting the stop button, going and checking it out, and then coming back and playing these 2 episodes. We left you at the end of part 1 of this 2-part series talking about the Doctor twist, and that's pretty much where we pick up this episode.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think it was it was one of those. It was an idea that, had they have executed it better, it could have been a cool idea.
Yeah, you know what it actually reminded me of, which this may or may not cause you to punch me through the internet, but it reminded me a lot of the Dr. Loomis character from Rob Zombie's Halloween. But in the way that, because I didn't ever really like that Dr. Loomis character.
No, I didn't either.
Until I saw this one, then I was like, oh, you know what? That guy's not so bad.
Yeah, no, I saw it as more of a. It reminded me of. I mean, you know how we talked, like in this film, they basically tried to pull as much of the from the whole series, like different pieces of, like, you know, little Easter eggs or whatever. And this one reminded me of like the idea that they kind of were going with Halloween 6, where the Dr. Wynn character.
Oh, yeah.
And that's probably what they were thinking, like, oh, let's have this evil doctor be behind all of this.
Yeah. To me, and I think we talked about this after we saw it, to me, what it almost felt like, they had filmed the movie, and then they were like, oh, this whole thing is kind of contrived. We got to come up with a way to explain this. And then somebody was like, and probably Danny McBride, yeah, I got an idea, man. Let's have this crazy doctor. And then we'll just, like, throw him in there.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that's a good idea. Let's do that.
The biggest question, okay, so, yeah, all right, so they went with it. All right, so I get it. But why in the hell did they have him put the mask on? I just can't, for the life of me, like, that just was so stupid. I mean, that was the worst decision ever. And, like, I mean, whatever. Anyhow, I think we clearly don't like the character. Another thing, when we were going back to characters like we had talked about, where Judy Greer's character was not needed in this, and her husband, by all means, wasn't needed in this. Another character I'm going to go and say was not needed in this film at all was the sheriff, which was he was the African-American guy with the cowboy hat on.
Oh, yeah.
I thought his character, like, it was just, like, too much. It was like, why is this guy in here now? Like, and he really didn't have a part. I mean, you could have pulled out every scene he was in, and it wouldn't have mattered. It was, because the other guy, the Will Patton played him, the deputy. That's all we needed. That's the only, you know, law enforcement representative we needed. It was just the one guy. We didn't need to get to know the sheriff and then have him, like, you know, show up at the crime scenes and all that. It just, to me, it, like, took away from the characters we already were trying to get to know. And it just seemed like, why was he even in this? And then why put a cowboy hat on him? Like, what was the point of that? It's not like this was like some Texas, you know, it reminded me of, like, I don't know, like in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, like, where they had, like, the Dennis Hopper character in the cowboy hat, and, you know, it just seemed like more of, like, some sort of ode to that than anything. And it was like, yeah, we don't need this. Like, this is Haddonfield, Illinois. You know, this isn't like some southern country where your sheriff would be wearing a cowboy hat kind of place. It just didn't make sense to me. Strip away the daughter, her husband, the sheriff, and we're starting to clean things up a little bit here, and we get a little bit more of a, get to know some of these people, and focus on Allison, you know? I mean, think about the original. Like, we had Annie and Lori and Linda. That was pretty much it. I mean, yeah, Bob came in towards the end there, but that was it. We were focusing on them. That was their story, and then on the second part, it was Loomis and Sheriff Brackett. So that was it. You would jump from one to the other, and there was no other need. There was no need to, like, it'd be like if Sheriff Brackett was like, oh, I got to go talk to my superior, and then all of a sudden this cowboy hat guy came out, and like we had scenes with him. It was, like, what? It's like, no, we don't need that. Or if, like, Laurie's parents, there was like some scene with Laurie Strode's parents, and like, her dad was like, well, before you drop off the key at the Myers place, go get some mouse traps because I got some peanut butter on my penis earlier today. I mean, it's like none of that was needed. It was like, like you added so many ridiculous characters in this film, and it's like, cut it all out. And even the dad's death scene. Remember, like when Michael goes and strangles him?
Right.
Then all of a sudden, somehow he ends up in the second floor closet. And, his death and then finding his body, nobody cared.
Well, that was a homage to Linda being found in the closet, I believe, is what that was supposed to be.
Yeah, but like even in the original, like when Linda dies, or when Annie dies, now when you watch it, it's like we've seen it so many times that like it's like you're just waiting for Annie to die because it's going to happen. But it was kind of painful. I mean, this is this like teenage babysitter girl, and it's like she's getting choked in the car, and you feel really uncomfortable watching it. And it's like, man, that sucks. Annie's gone. That she was like, we got to kind of know her. And then Linda gets choked, and you feel kind of uncomfortable watching that, and you kind of, and she was like, it was just sort of like, oh yeah, that was, that was one of Laurie's friends. And then when Laurie goes and sees their bodies in the Wallace house, it's like, these were these young kids that got killed, and we kind of knew who they were. And it was like, we got into this universe, and, in a horror movie way kind of feel for it. And again, like, now we're talking about it, but you got to go back to, you think about it like the first time you saw this, which was obviously when we were little. You'd have those feelings. Like nowadays, it's so like exactly every beat and everything that's going to happen. You don't feel that way. But with this, when the dad dies in the new movie, it was like, oh no, he's dead. Oh, there he is up in the closet, like wrapped up in bells, in a cord, and too bad. And then like his daughter and his wife, like they're like, yeah, oh well, yeah, he's gone. Oh well, let's just jump in the pickup truck and burn the place down. It's just dad. It's okay. It's like nobody cared.
And then the other thing too is you had this Cameron character who was Allison's boyfriend, who was the son of Lonnie.
Was that? I didn't catch that. Was that?
I missed it the first time. When I went back and saw it the second time, I was like, oh, they did say Lonnie because he'd come up in, like, when they were at the restaurant or whatever, and he was like, I went to high school with Lonnie. He gave me mushrooms or whatever. We were tripping balls in the field.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
But, Cameron and Allison went to that dance, and then Cameron kissed that other girl, and then Cameron was never heard from again in the movie. So I don't know if there was a scene that just didn't make it to the movie, or if something's going to happen with Cameron later. I don't know.
That's right. Cameron, that was it, right? Yeah. Yep. You're right. Okay. Because then Oscar kind of took over. And the Oscar character, strange. I have to admit this. I actually really, really liked that character. I don't know what your feelings were about him. I loved his little devil costume. I loved his kind of geekiness. I like that he, tried to get it on with Allison. I thought that whole thing, and then he had to try to, watch his, backpedal the whole thing. I thought that was great. Something about that actor looks like he belongs in a Halloween movie, and it looks like he's going to be killed too. I don't know what it is, but he's got this like persona. Like I remember seeing like a picture of him, like, and I was like, oh yeah, that guy's going to get killed for sure. Oh. I don't know what it was. It's just he had this like vibe of like, yeah, this is somebody that Michael Myers is going to stalk. And actually, to be honest with you, his death scene in the film, like the leading up to his death scene, I should say, was probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole film. And because that was where it seemed like Michael Myers, the shape, was the most like what I'm familiar with or what I was hoping for. Like where he's in this yard, and then like the motion sensor lights go on, and there's the shape standing there, and you just see his mask in the darkness. He's just staring at him, watching him, and like the kid doesn't know that who he is, and he's talking to him, and then lights go out, and then he's closer. You hear the breathing. I mean, that's the shape. That's kind of what that's the type of stuff that like really, that I'm looking for when I'm watching these movies.
So when I went and saw it the second time, because the reason why I went back a second time, because if you recall, when me and you went and saw it, I wouldn't say that I was heavily disappointed by the movie. I think it was kind of what I was expecting. My biggest thing was I had this whole like, but he was in Smith's Grove, and then he was all of a sudden in Haddonfield, and there was this, which was really cool when he first got to Haddonfield, and he's just like randomly killing people, and then all of a sudden he's at Laurie Strode's, whatever the compound, and then, it kind of takes this turn like, oh, so now he's focused on Laurie.
Yep.
But then I'd heard about these kind of fan theories that, well, actually, the doctor is behind the whole thing. So I went back and saw it again with that mindset. And again, I wish they would have kind of actually, if that's true, if they would have explored it a little more or shed some light to it, so you're not just sitting there like, what? But I will say that it was a different experience the second time, seeing it with that mindset that, oh, okay, so this guy is actually kind of behind it. So this actually answers some of those questions. Because being, over 40 and you're watching these movies to where, some stuff doesn't make sense. Like some stuff you can let slide, but it's like blatantly obvious stuff like, oh, so he's in Smith's Grove. Oh, nope, now he's in Haddonfield. Like some of that stuff you're just kind of like, you're going to have to tell me how that happened, kind of a thing. But I will say, and this is one thing that I've been thinking about a lot, is that this movie, at least to me, even though I know there's a lot of shots in here that were supposed to be paying homage to the originals, that this movie really felt more like, to me, a combination of some of the remakes more than the original 1978 Halloween. And what I mean by that is it really felt like to me that this was a combination of the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and 2007 Rob Zombie's Halloween, more than it was a direct sequel to the 1978 Halloween. And the other thing that I was thinking of would have been cool with this one is if they would have said this was a sequel to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, it would actually made a little bit more sense than trying to pull it off as a direct sequel to the 1978 Halloween, because it just had that feel to it.
It's funny you say that, because I think about that, and like, at the end of, well, let me ask you this: at the end of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, did he die? Michael Myers? Did we get the impression that he died?
Kind of, sort of, yeah. I mean, it was kind of the whole, they were in that shed thing, and he got all shot up. It was kind of like a similar ending to Halloween 4 a little bit.
Oh, okay. Okay, say he survived. I don't remember what happened. I remember the shed, but I didn't remember for sure what happened to him. So say for whatever, like he survived that shed scene, and then they put him back in Smith's Grove, and then we do this movie, and this is like technically Halloween 3, and then maybe Laurie Strode would be played by Scout Taylor, whatever. What was it? Scout Taylor Compton? What was her name?
Yep, Scout Taylor Compton. Yep.
So that would be the Laurie Strode, and yeah, that's interesting. It's kind of like, yeah, I could see that fitting into that Rob Zombie universe as this is the Halloween 3, more than Well, I mean, I guess we got Jamie Lee Curtis. So, but yeah, I get where you're going with that. It could have been either way, I guess, for me. They really hyped up the idea that this was going to really feel like the original, and it was really going back to the basics and really all of this. And in some ways, it was, but in some ways, it felt very different than the original. And I haven't quite put my finger on why that is, but like, for one, I do think we saw the shape a little bit too much. Like in the original, he kind of pops in and out, but this movie, we're pretty much following him throughout the course of every scene. Interesting though, talking about that whole idea of this being a Rob Zombie follow up, but and I was also one thing I want to say I was disappointed about too was the overall Halloween atmosphere that I like when you think of. Like, even though the original was filmed and I think it was springtime and it was in Pasadena, California, and you can see a couple of palm trees here and there if you look really hard. To me, it really feels like Halloween, like that Halloween night. Like, even though they only got a few jack-o'-lanterns and a couple of trick-or-treaters like in shadows and stuff in the film, to me, like when I watch that movie, I feel like I just feel like it's Halloween night when I'm watching it. This film, yes, it does capture it, but I think there was something with the way they filmed it that it didn't really quite bring me into that feel like I was hoping it would. And I know John Carpenter used a certain lighting. He used a lot of blue lights, and David Gordon Green kind of went a different route with that. But I wish they would have kind of went more with that, I don't know, the lighting palette or whatever. And I know that's really being critical of it, but I was hoping for more of that. Like I would feel like I'm almost in that same universe as the original film. And I guess that's why I like Halloween 2 so much, is because although there's a lot of crap in that film and there's some really terrible character development or whatever, at the same time it feels like it's Halloween night and it feels like it's an extension of that original film. Whereas this movie, even though it was modern and I'm accepting that part of it, it didn't have enough of that Halloween vibe for me to really fully buy that this was Haddonfield and that I was back in that universe. And even like one of my favorite Halloween movies now, I guess my two top Halloween films would be the original Halloween, obviously, and then Trick or Treat, which like goes like every shot of that film, it just feels like it just lives and breathes Halloween. Like you just feel it. Like it's like, oh, I gotta watch that movie every year. That's it. That's the one. And this one just seemed to kind of like some of that wasn't there. And like there's scenes like like the scene in the restaurant with what's her name, with Lori and going in and like talking to her daughter and her granddaughter. Yep. If you were to walk in on the movie and that scene, you'd be like, no, this doesn't feel like a Halloween movie at all. And like that whole scene, like I don't think should have been in there. Like when you watch the original film, every scene like feels like it's right for what it's building up to. There's no scene that feels kind of off. And that scene, actually, that dinner scene reminded me of H2O, where I used to kind of like H2O. Now, again, like I told you, I've taken that movie and crumpled it up and tossed it out because like it doesn't feel like the Halloween season at all. And like throughout the whole film, it just feels like I'm watching like Dawson's Creek or something, some crappy WB film. So it's like and that's what there's scenes in this new movie that kind of feel like that, where it's like, no, that's not very Halloweeny.
Well,
I do have to mention though, we didn't talk about Vicky, and Vicky is the blonde. Babysitter, and Julian is the kid that she's babysitting, and they got a lot of there was a lot of positive feedback. People were loving the Julian character and all that. And I will say that was like, in terms of like writing, in terms of comedy, okay, that all landed well. I thought that was well written. The Julian, that kid that played him, did great, and all of that was really well done. However, and I liked the Vicky character too. I had no problems with her. I thought she was a cool babysitter. I could picture her being like your typical, high school babysitter or whatever. However, all of that whole scene was so condensed and so quick, and the payoff actually was spoiled in the trailers. See, that whole thing should have been like expanded upon throughout the entirety of the movie. Like it should have been about Vicky babysitting this kid and Michael like peeking in the window and stuff, and eventually getting into the house, and then eventually into the closet. It should have been like a progression, but we get like 5 minutes and that's it, and then it's done, and then we're on to the next thing because we had to like fill in all the the dinner scene, the scene with the sheriff, this, so there's too much stuff in this movie, and that was the big problem. And we do have to talk the ending though, because that's gonna be once we get to the compound.
We haven't really touched on the Laurie Strode compound at all.
I think this is going to be a 2-part podcast. And we're doing there's more elaboration in this than we did our first episode ever with all.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was looking at the thing and I was like, oh man, we're almost in the first episode territory where we talked about like 12 movies.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, the Laurie Strode compound, which again, this kind of goes with what I was kind of saying earlier, where this whole movie has been marketed as the final confrontation between Michael and Laurie. And then you come to find out that Laurie Strode has spent the last 40 years basically preparing herself for one final confrontation with Michael Myers, where she finally gets to kill him because, she had to deal with him for 10 minutes. And she has turned this house that she lives in basically into, which you're kind of sort of led to believe that it's what was going on, to where it really isn't meant to keep people out as more as it is to keep somebody in. The biggest clue to that is she has bars on all the windows and all this stuff, except for her front door, which is mainly glass, and there's no protection at all between the outside and the inside, because she almost gets her head torn off by Michael in one scene, which I thought was kind of like hokey. Like, okay, so you have bars on the side windows there and bars on the side windows there, but you have these giant pieces of glass in the middle of the door and there's nothing on that? Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, the whole compound scene, and this goes into like this is the third act. Everybody's waiting for the big final confrontation, which, to be honest with you, as a Halloween fan, I wasn't looking forward to a big confrontation between Laurie and Michael Myers. Like, to me, in my mind, it's like, no, that happened 40 years ago, and that was fine the way it was left, So I was like, the idea of, like, never thought, like we said in the beginning of this podcast, I never saw Laurie Strode as a Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor character. I don't buy it. I don't buy that she would become that. I think that in reality, after Halloween 1, let's pretend all the sequels are gone, I think she would have had this like traumatic experience. She would have gotten through it. She would have become like a teacher or something like that and lived happily ever after, and would never have like tried to prepare and become like none of that would have happened. That just isn't the character. Just, to me, it just isn't. No matter what, it just, like you said, it was like such a quick thing, and yeah, her friends passed away, but at the same time, I just don't buy that she would have become like super military mom or whatever. Having said that, like, the whole idea of the compound and all that kind of seems just silly to me. I really didn't want that in this story. I wasn't hoping for that, and knowing that it was happening, and they really kind of like make the idea, like the whole idea is like, okay, it's really like centered upon the island in the kitchen that opens up and shows that there's a secret basement. It's like they must have, like, when they were writing the script, like, oh, let's make it like they hide in this basement, and that's, you got to push a remote control and it opens up, the island in the kitchen opens up and you can go hide in there. And that was like the centerpiece of this whole thing. So once that kicks in, I know the movie starts to go into final conflict era, and it's entertaining. And then they do the throwbacks, like, when Laurie falls off the balcony and Michael looks over and she's gone, and then when she appears from the darkness, kind of like how Michael did in the original. And there's some throwbacks like that. But to me, really, it was like, I don't know. It just like looking back at it now, it was like that just didn't seem the way I would see it all happening, knowing what I know of these characters, of all these years. And I will say, like, I don't know if I don't think this was purposeful at all, but there were two other horror movies that the third act reminded me of. What do you think I'm going to say? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Go ahead and.
Okay. It's when Allison escapes the police car and she's running through the woods screaming, and they keep showing the full moon. I was like thinking, original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is Sally running through the woods, the shots of the moon. Like, pretty cool. And then, I mean, that's what it reminded me of. And then Allison bumps into all the mannequins, and they do all these weird shots where the mannequins like kind of like go towards the camera, and these are the mannequins that Laurie uses as target practice. And I was thinking, tourist trap. Yeah, that's probably where they got the idea to shoot it like that. And then, and then the final confrontation, leads up to the second floor of Laurie's compound, and there's these, for whatever reason, she stores all her mannequins in one of the rooms, which is a little far-fetched, but okay, we'll play along. And then Michael's hiding behind there, and then he jumps out at her, and then they go into like a face-to-face conflict, and it leads with her, her falling off, getting thrown off the balcony.
When you got to the end of the movie, after this whole Dr. Sartan debacle, really what it came down to, again, giant spoiler here, is that Dr. Loomis had pretty much given up on Michael Myers 40 years ago, and basically, wanted him exterminated or terminated, however they said it in the movie, because he was nothing but pure evil, which he had said in the original Halloween. But this, kind of the whole underlying premise of this was, well, no, because one of the things that they had said in this, which I thought was really stupid, is one of the first lines is, well, he can talk, he just chooses not to. And then later on you find out, well, I've never actually heard him talk. What are you talking about then? He can talk, he just chooses not to.
Right.
But then they're trying to do this whole, no, Michael is pure evil kind of deal, which is fine. But like I said before, you have this whole kind of weird thing where, he's not supposed to have any relationship with Laurie, but then, here he goes. Him and Laurie are battling out again.
Yeah.
Now, here's one of the things that I think if they should have done, and again, this is, why me and you aren't writing Hollywood movies, evidently, but they should have really expanded on the Allison character. And if they really, really, really wanted to portray that Michael was pure evil and Laurie Strode was just some random thing they got in his way, and they wanted to do this whole final confrontation between Laurie and Michael Myers should have killed Laurie Strode off early in the movie, and then it went to Allison somehow. And just, like, Laurie's dead. Oh, hey, here's somebody over here. And then just goes after that character. Not to take away from the Laurie Strode character, but whatever, they got to the compound and Laurie's the first one to go.
I like that. Yeah, that wouldn't have been bad. We had, I know we previously in this episode we talked about the original ending. The ending, one of the endings I heard that was filmed was instead of the whole where he burns in the basement or whatever.
Whoa, spoiler!
Uh-oh. Well, we were talking Halloween 2. Wait, no, I said basement, not hospital. But anyhow, originally, I guess one of the original endings that was filmed was that it would end up with a confrontation outside of the house. And actually, there's a scene in the or a few scenes in the original trailer that aren't in the actual finished product, but where Michael steps outside and he confronts Laurie, and they have like a try to stab each other kind of scene. And then what happens is that Laurie's daughter shoots him with a crossbow, and then all three ladies jump into the pickup truck and get away. And then you see Michael standing there, and he's still alive, and he's pulls the arrow out of his back or wherever it was. And that was one of the endings. But either way, that ending would have been terrible. And I think the ending that they decided where like he gets basically burned, like he's trapped in the basement, and then like you see the flames growing behind him. I mean, it was what it was, Obviously, there's going to be another movie. We all know that now. So there was an escape hatch that he's going to get out of, and something's going to happen. But it just doesn't leave you like the ending wasn't like the most satisfying thing ever. It's just kind of like, okay, all right, well, you see the girls get away, and like you said, there was no like real, I don't know, like yeah, if Laurie would have died, that would have been more impactful, or maybe even her daughter. I don't know that I'd want to see the granddaughter die because I kind of liked her, but I think that they kind of missed the ball on that, or dropped the ball on that. Now, my concept for this film, I've really been thinking about this, and again, I'm, like you said, we're not Hollywood screenwriters, but I think like for one, they needed to simplify this a lot more and take out a lot of the extra characters that didn't need to be there. They should have done that. They should have stripped us of all of that. I think they should have forgotten the whole, or skipped out on the whole idea of Michael being caught and in the institution. I would have, if I was like the one writing this film, a new Halloween movie, I would have taken all that out as well. I wouldn't have retconned the idea of him being caught at the end of Halloween 1. I would have instead had the idea that he was still out there. Okay. And I like the idea of skipping 2 and on because I didn't like the brother and sister angle. But what I would have done I wouldn't have done where Laurie is the, Linda Hamilton, Sarah Connor character. I would have had her become like this old woman who like kind of is a hermit in the neighborhood, and everybody kind of knows her as like, oh, something happened to her, like, way back 40 years ago. But like, it's like sort of she would have been like the Luke Skywalker in The Force Awakens, where you kind of hear about her throughout the whole movie and you don't really get to know her till the end. And she would have been like, there'd be this old house, and she's living in Haddonfield, and it would have been centered on her granddaughter and her friends, and they'd be asking like, hey, what's going on with your grandma? She lives in that old creepy house, and oh yeah, we don't talk about her, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden Michael appears, but there's no rhyme or reason. There's no escape. There's no institution. It's been 40 years, and all of a sudden he appears in Haddonfield again, and we don't know why. No explanation. And then it would have been focused on Allison and Vicky and maybe another girl and maybe an Oscar and maybe the boyfriend, and but it would have been more focused on that. There'd be no Dr. Sartain. There'd be no the sheriff. There'd be no. We would never see the granddaughter's mother and her husband, and I think it would have been a much better movie had they have done that. But again, who am I to say this, because this movie's like topping $200 million. So,
all right, well, we've been at it. I think Mark hit it on the head. This is probably going to end up, when you're in, this is going to be the end of part 2 of the Halloween 2018 extravaganza we've been building up for forever. So
yeah, we'll have to do a Blu-ray episode too in January.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say this, which may come as a shock as throughout this. But if you are a Halloween fan, as I am, and as I said before, I enjoy pretty much all of the Halloween movies, and same as Mark, Halloween is probably, it hands down is my favorite horror movie. It is right up there in my top 5 all-time favorite movies. I like pretty much all of them except for Resurrection. I cannot stand that one. For the most part, I would even say, 6 months ago, I would have said H2O is another one that I can't stand. But as it stands right now, I don't mind H2O. I love part 4 and part 5. I like part 3 for what it is. I like the zombie movies for what they are. And, this one I would say you could throw in there, but as I said before, I wouldn't throw this one in there like instead of part 2. I would throw this one in there on a triple feature weekend. You watch Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and Halloween 2, and you throw this one on, and you just imagine that Jamie Lee Curtis is actually an older version of
Scout Taylor
Compton. And, just imagine that's that world.
That is funny.
40 years down the road, and it kind of actually fits a little bit better in that scenario. But with all of that said, I'm going to say that I would give this one sort of a thumbs up. I would give it more of a thumbs up than I would a thumbs down. So, and I'll probably see it again. Is it going to be a regular viewing every Halloween season? No. I'll probably watch it a couple of times when it comes out on Blu-ray and stuff. And then, it'll probably end up being one of those ones, kind of like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, where, watch it maybe once every couple of years, maybe once every 3 years, kind of a thing. So
yeah, I hear you. I kind of struggled with this one. When I went into this, before I saw this film, I went in hoping that, I was thinking, okay, it's either going to beat Halloween 2 for me or it's not. And because I knew it wasn't going to touch the original. I knew for a fact that it's not even going to be anywhere in the same ballpark as the original. So I was kind of I was walking in hoping like it was going to be my replacement for Halloween 2. I was hoping that I'd be like okay, every Halloween instead of Halloween 2, I'm going to watch Halloween and then Halloween 2018, and that'll be my Halloween horror movie night. Then I saw it a second time, and unfortunately I have to say that I still enjoy Halloween 2 more than I enjoy this film. However, in this strange Halloween franchise and my strange perspective of it, I will say that I enjoyed this film more than any of the sequels or the remakes. So I would put this one after Halloween 2. Probably I'm giving a lot of credence to the fact that I love The Mask, and I love the way Michael Myers looks, and I love James Jude Courtney as Shape. And I guess I imagine probably back in the original, era of horror, back in the black and white Universal days, are probably fans of Frankenstein. And when, Frankenstein, the makeup didn't look right, people were probably pissed off. And then, when they got it a certain way, that people could kind of overlook some of the storyline issues and just say, oh, well, at least Frankenstein's in it. And that's kind of how I see this film. And it's funny because I was thinking about the Frankenstein franchise, like the Universal films. And when you watch the original Frankenstein, at the end, the monster dies on the windmill. He burns up and it's over. He falls off or whatever happens. They burn it up. And that's it. There's no more story, really. And I guess technically the bride connected it in the original book, but in terms of cinematically speaking, really you don't really need another Frankenstein. But because everybody was a fan of the monster, they wanted to see more of it. So we got all these different Frankenstein sequels, and he's back from being in sulfur or whatever the storylines were. And that's kind of how I see Michael Myers, where really, to be honest with you, 1978 wrapped up his story perfectly. Watch the original film and end it there. For me, it's I still wanted a little bit more. So Halloween 2 is kind of squeezing the rest of the toothpaste out of the tube or whatever. It's there's a little bit more in there. I gotta use this, And so I don't really technically need any more, but it's I really want. Okay, what else can we do with this? And so this came out, and it was really cool to see a really cool Michael Myers back on the screen, on the big screen. And I thought, James Jude Courtney did an amazing job. And then Christopher Nelson did an amazing job sculpting the mask and creating it for the film and designing it. It looks great. The shots of him. And I love it. I own the mask, for crying out loud. I haven't bought a mask from a sequel since none of them. I've only got the, I only like the Captain Kirk mask, and this one I actually like. I'm I love it. So for the sake of the monster, being a Michael Myers fan, he is my favorite slasher. He will always be. I have to give it a thumbs up because it's another Halloween film, and it's got enough of that to kind of tide me over, I guess. But if I want to dig a little deeper in terms of a grading, and because I'll give you the thumbs up, okay, because I don't think you should totally pan this film. I think you should go see it. It definitely gets a thumbs up from me. But in terms of a grading, like on a school grading, like A, B, C, D, F, I'm gonna have to give this movie, like say John Carpenter's movie is an A plus. Halloween 2 to me is like a B minus, and then everything else is F. Except for this movie, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a C minus, which isn't a very good score, but because there was so much missing, but at the same time, it was I could watch it and say, okay, yep, that's Michael Myers. I liked it and I enjoyed it because just to see him back on the screen. So there you have it. Halloween 2018. Oh my gosh, and we haven't even talked about the score yet.
Oh my God.